It's called pretty much trauma bonding, and you don't realize it. So the one thing that, for instance, John or any other psychopath, sociopath, narcissist does is it's called love bombing. So what they're doing is they're telling you everything that you want to hear. And they've studied you to some degree. They're listening to your words and what's going to turn you on, what's going to make you fall in love with them. They are literally trying to figure out how to manipulate you. For whatever reason, sometimes it's about money, sometimes, it's always about power.
Testimony continued today in the most notorious criminal trial in Richland County history. Dr. John Boyle is accused of killing his wife Noreen and burying her body in the basement of his new home in Erie, Pennsylvania.
The 12-year-old son finally took the stand.
As I heard a scream, I heard a thud. It was about this loud.
We, the jury, find the defendant guilty.
When I was 12 years old, my testimony sent my father to prison for murdering my mother. This podcast serves as a type of therapy and reconciliation for myself, and it is my hope that it helps anyone who has experienced deception, betrayal, and dark trauma. I'm Collier Landry, and this is Moving Past Murder. Hey movers, what's going on? Welcome back to another episode of Moving Past Murder. I'm your host, Collier Landry. Thank you guys so much for supporting. Thank you so much for supporting the program, for listening. I know that a lot of people have been coming to the program because you've seen me on TikTok, on my TikTok channel, which is at Collier Landry. And for those of you that are supporting via Patreon, or you find me on YouTube, or you're downloading this on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, wherever, thank you so much. I really appreciate your support in helping to blow up this program, because guess what? I really love doing this. And it's really cool to be able to share my experiences. I know that some of them are really rough, and, you know, I haven't had the easiest life, but I also have a really great and amazing life, and you guys make me stronger, and your support is just really awesome. When you guys DM me and find me on socials and reach out, I love it. It makes my day. And I just came back from CrimeCon, as I told you guys last week, which was really interesting to me because I had never been to CrimeCon before in beautiful sunny Las Vegas, but I came back with like a cough sort of thing going on, affecting my asthma. I think it was the stale, but it's not COVID. In fact, for those of you watching, I am COVID negative. Here's my negative COVID test, because I was like, oh, did I get COVID at CrimeCon? I did not get COVID at CrimeCon. But I came back with a little bit of something making my asthma. It's probably the smoke in the casinos. I don't really dig on cigarette smoke, so that's probably what it was. But anyways, it was a fantastic time. It was cool to learn about true crime fans, because I'm really curious about all of you guys and what makes you interested in true crime. So much so that I keep interviewing people on this program, asking them, and I'm got some great interviews coming up with some amazing podcast hosts that have some amazing true crime podcasts that are going to join the program. And it's really cool. So look for those in the weeks and months ahead. There's going to be a lot of that cool stuff happening. I want to read out my listener shout out of the week. My first TikTok person. This is PJ72. And he says, or they say, I don't know if it's a he, who knows. This person, PJ72, says, as a person who is obsessed with true crime, I apologize. The reality is we love to see justice, not pain and suffering. That is a really great point. And I think that was one of the things that I learned about at CrimeCon is, you know, I kind of came into it with this sort of, I guess a bias. That's an honest thing. I was biased. I am a true crime survivor. I am a victim who was victimized by a perpetrator. And I kind of came into this like, why are people so obsessed with true crime? But I got to know a lot of you fans and a lot of my colleagues in the true crime space. And I realized that like a lot of it is like people want to see justice. They want to see, they want to learn from our experiences, which I'm so happy to share my experiences with you guys because it makes it all like worth it for me to be able to share that you guys learn from my stories and my personal, pain and suffering or whatever. But I understand that, not only when PJ comments, but when you guys reach out to me and that you are inspired by the stories, that you just want to see justice. You want to see justice. You want to see the bad guys go to jail like we all do, and the good people prevail. And we want to hopefully prevent these things in the future. Things like domestic violence, for example, which is so prevalent and rampant, not only in this country, but across the world. And my guest today is probably most famous for being a victim of domestic violence, coercive control, domestic spousal abuse, just had a really horrible time with a psychopath. Now, we have had her daughter on the program. I am talking about Debra Newell, who is known to you guys and most of the world through the Dirty John series, which was first a podcast on Wondery and the LA Times, and then became a hit television show starring Eric Bana as John Meehan and Connie Britton as Debra Newell, which is kind of cool because if I was a woman, I would love to be played by Connie Britton because I love Connie Britton. I was really a huge fan of Nashville. I watched Friday Night Lights. I thought it was cool. And Eric Bana was the Hulk. So let's just keep it real. That's super dope as well. And Julia Garner played Tara Newell's character. Anyways, I'm not here to regurgitate television history. What I am here to talk about is my amazing guest today is Debra Newell. She was a victim, like I said, of coercive control and of domestic abuse, domestic violence at the hands of John Meehan, who was a psychopath. And as we know how the story turned out, unfortunately, her daughter took his life because he came at her with the intention of taking her life, and she acted in self-defense. So that poses the question, like, what would you do when you're in this coercive control relationship? And Debra shares some really amazing insight into how she handled it, how she survived, how she came through it, and how she has moved past that trauma in her life, and also how she continues to deal with it. She also talks about some things because obviously when your life becomes a television series that's very successful, there is a lot of judgment that comes along with the person who, like herself, and there's a lot of victim shaming that happens. There's a lot of scapegoating, and there's a lot of people who are saying, well, why did you stay in this relationship? I had the same thing with people that reached out to me about my mother. Like, oh, your mother stayed in her marriage because your father was a doctor and he had money. No, that's not really the thing, because my mother put my father through medical school, and it wasn't a money thing. It was most likely what it is when you are in these, and you can only really understand these when you're in these abusive relationships, because I think it's very easy, and there happens to be a very famous trial that's going on right now, a defamation trial between Amber Heard and Johnny Depp, and at the core of that trial is domestic abuse and domestic violence. Which is unfortunate, and it's this massively exposed dirty laundry of these people's lives that I don't really care a lot about. I want to see good people do good things and whatever. It's a mess. It's a mess. There's no other way to describe it. It's a tabloid. It's a soap opera playing out right before us in the courtroom. I think they're on their 4th week or something absurd like that. But at the core of this is domestic violence, domestic abuse, coercive control, manipulation, psychopathy, sociopathy. These are all things that I talk about with my father, who exerted a lot of control over my mother. He was a narcissist, a sociopath, and it's easier said than done to be in those relationships, to be wrapped up in them, and then have people go, oh, well, you should have gotten out of it. It's not that easy, especially when your lives are so intertwined and you have children involved, or you have a marriage, or you have a business that you run that somebody could take away from you because they've married you for nefarious reasons. So those are all things that we're going to talk about with Debra today's episode. So without further ado, I don't know, whatever it is, I am very pleased to welcome to the program Debra Newell. So Debra.
Yes.
How are you?
I'm great. I'm happy to be on here.
Yeah, I'm happy to have you. And I don't know how much you know about my story.
I don't know a lot about it, but I was hearing the tail end about your mom and dad.
Yeah. So
your dad was a doctor.
Yeah, my dad was a real doctor. Yeah, my father, when I was 11 years old, murdered my mother. And
oh, wow.
I heard it happen. It was on New Year's Eve, 1989. and no
Oh
one
my
believed
gosh.
me except for one detective. It was treated as a missing persons case.
Oh.
And between this detective and I, over the course of 25 days, we basically solved and found out where my mother's body was. He had buried her in a house that he bought with his mistress in another state.
Oh my
And-
gosh.
And I
That's
had found
awful.
this picture of this house because I was meeting with the investigator, because my father, essentially on New Year's Eve 1989, I heard these thuds, I heard this scream. I woke up the next morning, ran into my mother's bedroom, was like looking for blood on the sheets, came
Oh
down,
my
confronted
gosh.
my father, whose name was actually also John.
Wow.
He,
Wow.
what is it with these Johns, right?
I don't know.
John Meehan, John
Yeah.
Boyle, John Doe. They're all
Yeah.
have these massive reputations.
Right.
But I said, where's my mother? And he goes, well, mommy took a little vacation, Collier. And
Wow.
that's what happened. And it ended up being, I called my mother's friends. They sent 2 uniformed black and white officers out to the house. And then they treated it as a missing persons case.
Wow.
By the grace of God, this detective happened to see it because it was New Year's now 1990. It was January 1st, 1990. He saw this come through across the desk. This missing persons case. The doctor's wife disappeared. I don't have a lot going on. Let me just go check this out. Came to the house. I was able to pull him aside because my father wasn't home. And I said, I don't care what anybody says. My father murdered my mother. My mother is dead. She's not coming back. They didn't get into a fight.
Gosh.
There's none of this. And I grew up in a very small town in Ohio. And because my father was a doctor, people like that don't get investigated. In fact, his captain was very much like, what do you do? Like, what are you doing? They got into a fight. She ran away. And he's like, there's something about this kid. And I was relentless. And I would have him come to the school while I was, in school, and meet with me, and always, and to like update me on the case. I'd be like, okay, I'm going to go home. And while he's not there, I'm going to pull the bookshelf out and look for her body or look for her purse. Wow. And one day he went into the gas station, and I opened up the little cubby hole in his truck. While he was inside, I could see him. And I found a picture of a house, a Polaroid. And then I found another Polaroid of his girlfriend with her 2 kids in front of a fireplace wrapped in plastic. I told the police about it. That's how they found the house, which was in another state in Pennsylvania. All this happened in Ohio.
They keep evidence. It's their trophy. Yeah.
Yes. And then that's how that's how they caught him. And they found my mother's body buried beneath the basement floor.
Oh my gosh.
25 days later. It was pretty crazy. So I was,
how old were you? Did you say 11?
I was 11, and then I was 12 when it went to trial. So I testified against the grand jury, against my father at the grand jury. They indicted him for murder because it was premeditated, because he planned everything like months in advance. He bought the house. He wanted to lower the floor. It was literally the largest, at that time, the largest murder trial in Ohio history. And it rocked my whole community. And I was sharing with Tara, I come from the small town in Mansfield, Ohio. And even though you guys are in Southern California, glamorous Southern California, I lived in Orange County for a while. It is a very small, tight-knit community. It is like a small town.
Yeah.
Lots of gossip.
It is. Everyone knows each other for the most part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a lot of friends that live in like Dana Point, Newport Beach, Irvine. And I know how that community is. And I ended up testifying at trial for 2.5 days, and he's still incarcerated to this day.
Wow.
And one of the things I do.
Well, good for that. I'm really happy for that, at least.
Yeah. And one of the things that I was discussing with Tara is on this show, I have his letters over the last 30 years that he's written to me from when he was first incarcerated.
Wow.
And I read these letters for the audience. And there is so much that they can glean from this, with the manipulation, the gaslighting.
100%.
All of these things. And, when I think about things like coercive control, which is what you had, and I know that, I came into knowing about the story through the television show only because I had friends that worked. I'm a DP. I had friends that worked on the show, and they were telling me, but I didn't know what it was about, the podcast. I didn't know any of this. And then I did a deeper dive. This was just a couple of years ago. And then I was like, this is based on a podcast. Or LA Times story, this, that, and the other.
Right.
And I was like, this happened in my backyard. I didn't even know. And it's I couldn't help but when I would see it, and I was a big Nashville fan, so it started Connie Britton. So of course I tuned in just for that. But I couldn't help but thinking a couple of things, and I was broaching this with Tara.
Okay.
One is where I knew where it happened and the small town vibe. And I know that people out here, especially in that community, are very judgmental and very good at passing judgment on others and victim shaming and blaming. And,
right.
And so I think with yourself, and this is what I want to ask you is, for me, my father is very good at victim shaming me. So there are letters. Really? And even as I had a stalker, and even as
because you're the one that caught him. You're the one that saw through him.
Yeah. And he would have gotten away with it because the statistic I believe in 2020 was something like 45% of murders in the United States go unsolved.
Right.
And then you have this with domestic violence and with things like this, the cops just want to wash their hands of it. I mean, look at the case of Robert Durst, right?
Oh,
so he was, his wife disappeared in 1982 or something, or 84. And up until he died of COVID a couple of months ago, he was set to go on trial for that finally. To face those charges, because she just disappeared, and it's a missing persons case, and that's where these things go. And one of the things that I think that, and I know that you guys, when there are a lot of people that benefited from your story, but one of the things that I really gravitate towards is the fact that you guys openly and honestly wanted to tell the story to have the social impact and to raise awareness for these types of things. Much like I did with my film, because I made this into a documentary, and it's on investigation discovery, and it's like people are like, "Oh, you made all this money." I was like, I was the person that got paid the least. It's my story, and I produced it and I put everything together. But but I didn't do it for that. I did it because I didn't want this was my mother's legacy. This is my mother's story, and I didn't want her death to be in vain. But it was also it's the whole reason why I came to Los Angeles, California. Is I wanted to do something with the story, and I wanted that voice to be heard. I wanted to impact people's lives and impact change, and heal myself at the same time. And I feel like you guys did that exact same thing. But
I think that's what you have to do with it.
Yes. You because that's how you process the trauma, right? Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that this is part of our process, and for me as an artist, it's a creative thing, right? For you as a victim that had just this, I mean, let's forget about what happened with the drama with your daughter Tara, right? And it coming to that confrontation, which was unfortunate for everyone, right? Oh yeah. Just the fact that you had somebody like this in your life that was, enacting this coercive control. And I'll be honest, like, I don't have exactly the best luck with dating apps myself. So I'm in no way. So are you single or are you married? I am very much single. Okay. But making a joke, but you meet somebody and you share your world with them. And I have dated someone who was a narcissist and a sociopath, or I don't want to say she's a sociopath, but she was a narcissist for sure. But did you figure that out at first? Oh, no. Exactly, because they're so good. Yeah. They're so good. And then one of the things I was explaining to my producer yesterday is you don't see these things. And then people, oh, well, didn't you see it? It's so easy for people to be the Monday morning quarterback in these things. It's hindsight. I mean, obviously, but they're not in it. The ones that are in it get it, or that have been there. That's what it is. Until you've experienced it, you can sit on the sidelines and judge it. All they want. And so why don't you, as somebody who experienced this, just this coercive control specifically, because I feel this is something that is so insidious. And like I said, when I read these letters from my father, The audience really, they just like, thank you for reading this. I can see this in my own life. I see the way my father
Right.
treated me,
Yeah.
or my mother, or my spouse, or my boyfriend, or this person, this ominous figure that has this control over them. They don't
Right.
realize it's
Yeah.
happening. And then when they break away from it and they realize that this is happening, this is when they go full on scorched earth. They're the
Oh
wounded
yeah.
bird.
Oh yeah.
They're the victim, and they come after you. Why don't you share with me, because this is so important, I feel, for everyone to know. Why don't you share with me what that's like and what that looks like?
Well, it's called pretty much trauma bonding, and you don't realize it. So the one thing that, for instance, John or any other psychopath, sociopath, narcissist does is it's called love bombing. So what they're doing is they're telling you everything that you want to hear. And they've studied you to some degree. They're listening to your words and what's going to turn you on, what's going to make you fall in love with them. And so what John did was he listened quite well the first date. And I'm thinking, wow, he's a good listener. And pretty soon he's telling me how beautiful I am, or I'm an animal lover. Oh, I had dogs. They were so important to me. Or he has kids, daughters. And so he would talk about his daughters, or the church that we both went to the same church. So everything was like, oh, okay, he's checking off that box. He checks off that box. And then he's funny. I love funny. I love intelligence. So all these things were, checking off the box of a guy that looks like a great guy. And so that first date obviously didn't end well, but again, he knew how to get back in. And I'm a very forgiving, probably too much of a pure heart, where I forgive, move on, and it's okay. So what happened was, when he pushed to the limit, and then anyway came back in the next day saying all the right things. So love bombing takes place, and then pretty soon they're doing all these things for you. So there's a little bit of a, wow, this guy is going to the grocery store. I'm a busy woman, bringing me flowers, going for walks, giving me massages. I mean, he's doing everything that, how can you not fall in love with this person? So they're continuing this, but so it's a dependence almost to, wow, this is so great. How could I not, want to be with this guy? And then they start the gaslighting, where I'm not one to confront or to fight, but he would start saying, oh, your kids, they're using you for your money. So he would turn things around and make you second guess yourself.
Sure.
Thinking, wait, how come I have a great relationship with my kids. I don't know what you're talking about. And saying, nope, they did this, they did that. You need to have boundaries. Then it goes into isolation. Pretty soon he's saying, okay, I don't like that friend, or I don't like what she did. Or, honey, when are you going to be home? I miss you so much. And you're like, oh, okay, I'll hurry home. And I'm a pleaser. So a lot of this, I don't know if they see into this personality type, or if it was the perfect storm, as far as John's personality and my personality. But I mean, everything they do, they're making love to you several times a day. They're, kissing every inch of you. So, I mean, everything makes you just feel wonderful. But again, I'm a smart woman. I ran a fairly large design company. And one thing that somebody told me one time is, you go to work every day. You're focused on your work. You come home and then you enjoy your personal life, whatever that may be. That when somebody is a sociopath or psychopath, which John ended up being a psychopath, They're studying you. They're trying to figure out their next move. So the words that are coming out of their mouths is something where they are literally trying to figure out how to manipulate you. For whatever reason, sometimes it's about money, sometimes, it's always about power.
It's always about power, exactly.
Yeah, it's always about power.
And I think it's interesting you said money, because obviously you had some, right? And I think that people naturally go to that. Oh, he wanted your money. Oh, he want this. It's not quite that simple. Like people's motives, like it's very easy to dismiss it as, oh, that person did this for money. That some people just want that control, that power. And one of the things that I remember on the podcast, somebody said something, I want to say it was the prosecutor or somebody, was discussing the type of person that John is.
Right.
As some people are just born evil. And that was one of the things that I realized doing pre-production for my film, A Murder in Mansfield. And I was looking for these reasons of, like, I thought my father, because he had molested my two cousins on my mother's side about 2 years before he was arrested, which is why my mother's side of the family abandoned me. They couldn't deal with me because I looked like my father. My father's side of the family abandoned me because I was testifying, and I'm the one that brought all this out. Even though my father murdered my mother, that was not a big deal to them, as it was me going against the family, if you will. So I think that, and I still don't have relationships to this day with these people, by the way.
Really?
These are like my godparents, and I come from a Catholic home, and they just were like, whatever.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's my reality, right?
Yeah.
But I think but that's also the destructive nature of what happens when these things occur, right?
Oh yeah.
And I was looking for this sort of, because my father's father was an alcoholic. So I thought, okay, was he an abusive alcoholic? He did this, and I couldn't find out. No, he was a happy binge drinking drunk. And I was like, I was the same way when I drank. I was like very happy and just like good time guy. I didn't get in fights. I didn't get, there was nothing like that, right?
Right.
So I was like trying to find these reasons, and I realized when I was sitting across from my father in the film, and I was trying to find this reason, like my whole reason for doing the film, my whole reason for coming to Hollywood was to tell this story, but also to like heal myself and find out, like, why would you murder my mother? What did you stand to gain from any of this?
Here's the problem though. He doesn't have a mind, a normal mind.
No, exactly.
So there's not going to be logic.
There's no logic, and the motive is just control and things of that nature. Now, and you can tell me if this is a sensitive subject, but you had a sister, an older sister.
Yeah.
Cindy.
Yes.
Are you comfortable talking about that?
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Cindy, I believe, was also involved with someone who was a psychopath.
Yes.
And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, your mother had testified at trial?
Well, okay. She testified because, first of all, we had no idea what was happening behind closed doors. And back in those days, you don't talk about it.
Of course.
Clearly, we now talk about it, and it's great. That the Me Too movement and everything else, we're sitting there really discussing about what happens and, the impact.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Cindy was married to a man that acted, he was charming. He acted and doted all over my sister. So my mom was only seeing this great guy. She wasn't seeing what was happening behind closed doors. And so when she testified about Billy being a good dad, a good husband, supposedly a good person, because that's what she saw.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't that she was dismissing that her daughter had been murdered. She still has cried about that, missing her daughter. That's her daughter.
Yeah.
So I don't think that they look at the whole picture when they talk about that she defended him. There's a lot more to it.
Sure.
So,
And
yeah.
I think it's, and I'll go one step further. I think it's a testimony really to how good these people are.
Oh,
How
100%.
how much of
Yeah.
master manipulators they are,
Oh,
to
yeah.
the point that your mother
Mhm.
testifies on his behalf at a trial of
Right.
the murder
Yeah.
of her, somebody who murdered her own daughter.
Right.
And I think that, like, when I think about that, it gives
Mhm.
me chills.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
can see again, there is this, people are very quick to rush to judgment and very
Right.
quick to victim shame, or very this. And my victim shaming came in the form of my father, who would send me these letters shaming me,
Right.
even as recently as last year,
Wow.
2021.
Really?
I had a stalker, and this stalker reached out to him in prison. And he said, oh, Collier's exploiting his trauma and victim. He's a trauma victim of his own thing. This is my father, who murdered my mother when I was 11 years old,
Wow.
and all this. He still holds
Wow.
this animosity, this anger towards me for going to prison for something that he did. And I was reading a letter on the one of the previous episodes that I recorded. Well, when this one comes out, it'll be a previous episode, but I recorded it last night. I was going through this letter he sent me, 4 years after he was in prison. And basically doing this whole, like you said, love bombing, right? So he's
Right.
talking about, like,
Right.
he's saying all these, oh, you're so handsome, your mother would be so proud of you, I'm so proud of you, oh, you're going to homecoming with this girl, you'll have many like being this father. And then he slowly, over the course of like turns it to how I need to watch out for myself. And then they build this narrative, they construct this narrative.
Oh, yeah.
Turns into like
Yeah.
how he's innocent of the crime, how I shouldn't be ashamed because he didn't do
Right.
anything wrong, and just
Right.
all these things, and how I need to be diligent, and how there's all these clues and these attorneys he's working with that he was falsified. I mean, all just this absolute sheer lunacy that these people
Oh, yeah.
do, and they're
Yeah.
so good at it.
They're so good. Yeah.
And people you do not understand, because I'm sure that they were like, oh, well, yes, you were wealthy in Orange County, and you just wanted a man, and you wanted this and that. And it's like, no, I was a very intelligent woman who built my own business and had my own
Right.
life and had my own children.
Right.
And I'm not some dummy that was desperate for a man.
No,
I was
not at all.
somebody
Yeah.
who was preyed upon. And I think that one of the wonderful, you mentioned the Me Too movement and things like that, is, and one of the things that I feel good about this program, about what we're doing, what you guys are doing, is the more we discuss this, the more awareness we create.
Yes.
So people can recognize these behaviors, so they don't become like that.
Oh,
But
100%.
back to Cindy,
Uh-huh.
are there moments that you have when you reflect back, or even in the moment of when all this had come unraveled with John,
Right.
that you said, oh my God, this is what happened to did you have that complete moment of just, oh my God, this is what my sister went through?
Oh, 100%. First of all, going back, I was unsettled with the whole thing of him getting out of prison in 3.5 years. And I decided to go investigate the case. I called, obviously, certain witnesses, the attorneys involved, so on. And I found out that he had premeditated the murder. And I found out there was abuse, so many things. And it just happened to be, when I was going to come forward with it all, the OJ thing happened. And I had been asked out by OJ. Yeah. And my sister at the time was dating Marcus Allen. And the minute my sister was
Because like running backs.
Yeah, I guess so. But what happened was, I was on a show on TV talking about my sister's murder, but I wasn't allowed to really talk about OJ or talk about Marcus Allen. But that's when I realized he had completely 100% used coercive control on my sister and was a psychopath and gotten away with it, and is living happily ever after with a woman right now with her family. He lied about it, the whole works. But what's really frustrating to me is I wanted to go back to court, and it had been 10 years, 2 months. So I'd lost the time frame to be able to do that. but there was no justice served whatsoever. And I think that to this day, I feel like I want to bring awareness to what happened. And I want to bring awareness to what happened to me, because so many people, men and women alike. I mean, it's not just women that are getting conned, it's both. So sort of bringing up the red flags. But one thing about victim blaming, I didn't care if I got blamed, because it was so about spreading awareness. And I knew who I was as an individual. So it didn't, maybe the first few times I'm like, what in the world is going on? How can someone blame the victim? And you really have to sit there and go, you know what? It isn't about me right now. It's about building awareness to help other people. So
that it is.
Yeah. So I'm thinking, as you're telling me your story, you are extremely strong.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. And what an incredible person you are for what you've done. At the age of 11, standing up for what was right and being able to reveal and go through what you've gone through. It brings tears to my eyes. What an amazing person you are.
Well, thank you. That's very kind of you to say. I did it all for my mother, and even continuing to tell the story and doing this podcast to really raise awareness. I mean, look, I think we're all extraordinary. All the people on this call, on this episode, because it's. I'm glad. I'm glad. This is the side that people don't get to see, right?
Yeah.
That they don't, and it's incredible, and it's nice to find like that kindred spirit in someone that has been through these things, because we understand it.
Oh yeah.
It's so easy, and we don't get. I was talking to your daughter, and I'll talk to you guys about this together as well. But one of the things that I wouldn't say I'm obsessed with, but I am definitely very curious about, as someone whose entire life, pretty much the majority of it, I just turned 44, which is the age that my mother was murdered at. So this was a big year for me.
Yeah.
And a lot of thoughts just kind of processed through my head.
Mm-hmm.
But, one of the things I've always been interested in is why people are so obsessed with true crime. Mm-hmm. I'm getting ready to go to CrimeCon next month, and I know
good for
Tara
you.
has been there. Yeah. And it's interesting because I'm going there but I realize that when I think about it, I'm going to a trade show of people that are very obsessed with true crime.
Oh, it's fantastic, by the way. We were speakers 2 years ago.
Oh, that's so cool. Okay, yeah. That's great. Yeah. Then I need to, and then I'm excited to go, but I think it's just, it's one of those things where I'm just, I think about people's obsession, and there are obviously a myriad of true crime podcasts out there, and it is a real thing. And there was an episode of Forensic Files that was done on the case, and it is the most one of the most popular, like top 10 out of 450 episodes that show has, top 10 in the history of the show. And there's I was interviewed for a book by the blogger that does Forensic Files now, and she I asked her, I said, why do you think people are obsessed with true crime? And so I want to ask you the same thing. Why do you think people are obsessed with this? What do you think it is?
Because I think it's far too common out there. A lot of people don't talk about it. And I also believe that with the mind, reading about psychopaths, studying, all the different types of what happens to us, traits of sociopaths, psychopaths, narcissists, so on. I think that we just are trying to understand. It's a little bit fascinating to me now too. I have a book that came out. I don't know if you know that.
Yes, you did. So is it called Surviving Dirty John?
It is. And it really does get into the real story of what really happened, but it gets into the different personality traits. It gets into understanding red flags, and also coercive control, because a lot of people don't know what that means. And it's so prevalent out there.
And then they learn what it means, and then they go, oh my God, and they have this big
right. Yeah.
This is what's happening to me my whole life. And I think that's something that definitely happens when I like read these letters, right? And just like when you share your story and people actually, because again, you don't realize it when it's going on. And then when you have that, it's like what they say in the, I guess they say in AA, you have that the alcoholics have their moment of clarity, and then they go, oh, you have this like overwhelming moment of clarity where you go, oh my God, this is what's happening to me.
Right.
And it's an amazing gift that, this is the way I look at my life. I feel like I have been given an amazing gift despite what has happened to me, where I have the strength that I can show other people that you can get through these challenging circumstances. You can get through this. And I feel that you guys, that you and your daughter are the same way, where
thank you.
God never gives us more. Of course you're welcome, and I mean it, because I feel the same way, is that this is what this is your light that you're able to shine into the world to, and you've made the sacrifice, if you will, to to share this with the world, and it's very
thank you.
It's very commendable.
Oh, thank you. Same to you.
Well, thank you. Well, it's really hard when you think about, or when you hear Debra's story, when you hear Tara talk about it with her. These are two women that were very strong women that have come through a really insane circumstance. Let's just call it what it is. It's so insane that it became a television show, podcast, and then television show, and now a series, now a franchise. There's other cases now they're exploring. So it's interesting to listen to them. It's interesting to listen to them share their process of getting through all of this. It's really cool. It's really commendable. And all they wanted to do at the end of the day is share this story to better help those that are suffering domestic abuse, domestic violence, coercive control, when you're in these abusive relationships. And I've talked about this ad nauseum on the program, but everybody coming through COVID, like you were stranded with someone, essentially quarantined. People were quarantined with people that they didn't really know. And then they got to know, and they were kind of like, oh, this is my spouse or domestic partner, or this person, or this is my husband, or spouse, I guess, or wife, or this is my person, or my father, or this, that, and the other. We don't realize that these things are happening, and that's the most insidious thing of all of this. When I read my father's letters on this program, you guys get to see the manipulation and the psychopathy and the narcissism that he does to his son, whose mother that he murdered, and then trying to gaslight him. And the gaslighting is so insidious, because it becomes this thing where you're like, am I crazy? Am I crazy? Because you think you're going crazy because you're being gaslit. It's a lot. It's a lot to hear their story, but kudos to them for telling their story to raise awareness for domestic abuse, domestic violence, coercive control. Again, I'm repeating this over and over again, but mad props to Debra, to Tara, for telling their stories, for having the courage to do that, because not a lot of people do. And hopefully their stories, my story, us sharing these things personally with you guys, it helps you guys that are moving through this own trauma in your lives, and knowing that you're not alone in all of this. That's the thing. At the end of the day, it's why I made a Murder in Mansfield. It's why I do this program. I want you to know that whoever you are, if you're going through this shit, you are not alone, and you will get through it. I'm living proof. Debra's living proof. Tara is living proof. We're all here, and we're all okay, and we're just doing it one day at a time, but we're moving past it, and that's what it's all about. So you two will be okay, and just know that. That's all. Anyways, but that's just how I feel. I want to hear how you guys feel. Again, reach out to me on the social medias. You can DM me. You can email me at movingpastmurder@gmail.com. You can reach out through my website. There are many ways to get a hold of me, because there are not many Collier Landrys out there in the world. So you will find me anything at Collier Landry, my socials. I love hearing from you guys, because it helps me create the content that I best suits you guys, my audience. So anyways, y'all have a fantastic week. I'm Collier Landry, and this is Moving Past Murder. Thanks, y'all. This podcast is made possible by support from listeners just like you. Please subscribe via Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audible. Find us on YouTube, youtube.com/Collier Landry. The film A Murder in Mansfield is available on Investigation Discovery, Discovery Plus, and Amazon Prime Video. This podcast is a production of Don't Touch My Radio in association with RSA Entertainment. Please visit mpmpodcast.com to show your support today.